That's a good one. We're gonna bite this afternoon. What is going on, my homies? We're out on beautiful Lake Guntersville, and I got kind of a question predicament for you. So it was awesome. Like a week ago, there were fish out deep, there were fish staging 6 to 8 feet of water. You throw like a chatterbait mini, smoke them, throw like a spinnerbait, a trap, like awesome kind of pre-spawn situation. Like in the past like week or two, that script has totally flipped, and in a good way. So it's the spawn. The spawn is here. These fish moved up ultra shallow. Like I'm talking like kicking up dirt with the trolling motor, foot and a half of water, super skinny. And one thing that I struggled with before I figured out this little trick that I'm going to show you is, you see these fish up shallow, they're swimming around, but you're kind of creeping around, and it's really tough to throw a chatterbait. It's tough to throw a trap. It's tough to throw our power fishing baits that shallow. Unless you're fishing like a frog, maybe a swim jig, something along those lines, it's really tough to kind of power fish your way through until you see that next great big bass on a bed. So one thing that I do this time of year is probably something that you already have on your deck. We sight fish with a Texas rig a lot, like probably 90% of the time for these spawning fish. When you see them on the bed, you kind of power pull down, or you set yourself up in a position where you're not spooking them, and you pitch that Texas rig, 3/16, 1/8 ounce, 1/4 ounce, and you sight fish them. You put it on the bed. So you probably already have it on your deck. But what I do with it that's a little different is the Texas rig, it's such a 4-wheel drive bait. It's a snagless bait. When you're fishing this ultra shallow, a lot of times there's a lot of muck and goo. Some of the first grass comes up. There'll be a lot of docks, just shallow water cover, stumps, things along those lines, all things that make it difficult to fish an open hook bait. So what I do is I take that Texas rig, and basically instead of dragging it, I'll swim it. The other really cool thing with that is a lot of times these fish will bed in the back. We're right next to a giant pocket. So it's got a very mucky bottom. There's places with little hard spots where they'll sweep off that muck and then they'll spawn there. But for the most part, it's pretty gooey bottom. So dragging a worm through it gets your worm all buried in the goo. You get crap back on your freaking net, your bullet weight. Like it's no fun. So by swimming that bait, you're able to keep it kind of above some of that goo, above some of that trash. You have a Texas rig, it's snagless, so you're able to fish it through any kind of heavy cover. The other cool thing with this is you can skip it pretty easily. So if you have a lake with a lot of docks, a lot of overhanging trees, that type of cover, it's very easy to skip this bait under and just basically swim it back. Keep it up in the water column. A lot of times this time of year, these fish are looking up and you're getting that reaction, but you're able to fish it ultra shallow. I'd say 90% of the time when I'm doing this, I'll use either an 1/8 or a 3/16, just like this. Just a little tungsten weight with a little bobber stop right there. That's a 6 cents clear one. I'll run like a 4/0 or a 3/0 offset Shaughnessy hook, just like that. I'm running pretty heavy line because, I'm on Guntersville. I'm hoping to catch a great big one. The other thing is there's a lot of that grass, a lot of that cover. So I'm running 17 to 20 pound fluorocarbon. It does make it a little difficult to make bomb casts, but it gives me that strength to really set up on them. The other thing you can do too is if you're fishing around like a lot of lily pad stems, dead stems, if you're in Florida and you're fishing a lot of grass, you can run braid. I do find I get a lot more bites on that fluorocarbon though. What I'm fishing it on is, this is a KS2. This is basically my swim bait rod. So it's a little bit stouter, but it's got a nice tip to it. It's a 7.2 medium heavy, got a Shimano SLX on there. It's a 7.21. It's a little quicker because what I want to do is basically cast that thing out, point my rod at about a 45 or so, and just kind of slow roll it. Sometimes I'll go a little faster, sometimes I'll go a little slower, sometimes I'll kill it too. Let that bait flutter down, especially if I get kind of whacked. You know how these bedfish can be where they kind of swipe at the bait, but they don't close the deal. If that happens, I'll just stop immediately. And a lot of times those fish will kind of circle back and actually eat it. Baits wise, this is really where you got to kind of get a feel for your fish, especially if you have spawning fish. If you 100% know they're up on bed, they oftentimes short strike the bait like we're talking about. So I want something compact. Selections are pretty straightforward. I use a range of things. So a burner craw. You know, little kicker appendages on it. It swims really well through the water. Got kind of a beefier body, so I can put that hook in there, and especially if I'm going through a lot of cover and goo, it holds that hook really well. If I want to downsize a little bit from there, the Zoom's Ultra Vibe Speed Craw, this is absolutely killer. It's one of the standards. A little bit thinner body, a little bit smaller profile, still get that kind of thump. It has a little bit softer body though, so it can tear off a little faster than that Gambler. The other one that I've been playing a lot with recently that I absolutely love, I wanted something compact and a little more subtle. One of my favorite baits to throw this time of year when I'm dragging a worm is a stick bait, you know, a fat ace, an ace, things along those lines. So I wanted something like that, but shorter, as well as having some kicking appendages. So this is a rage tail. It's like I think it's a menace or something like that. Basically, it's a small grub style bait. It has those kicking appendages, but it's super streamlined, super compact, and it's nice and short too, so these fish don't miss it. And the big ones still bite it. Like today, I caught like a 4.5, a couple right around 3.96, 3.97, and I missed an absolute giant. But it's compact. It allows you to cast pretty decent because there's enough beef on the body, but it's compact enough for that when those fish kind of swipe at the bait and they miss that bait, they really don't miss that compact grub style bait nearly as much as they do the longer baits. Now, say you want something a little different, maybe something a little bit bigger. That's when I'll go to, say, like the burner worm, swimming style worm, an Ultra Vibe speed worm. It's just got that kicking tail, nice thin profile. You can swim it, adds a little more plastic so it elevates the bait. Now, if you're dealing with absolute giants, like Texas size, Florida size Mondos, this is a little sneaky one that I do. This is the Gambler Bacon Rind. It's a creature hog style bait. This is a classic. Davey Height won the classic in like 1999. I was all giddy and like excited because it was really cool. But it's got a nice big tail on it. It's got these wings on it, which basically help the bait to kind of stay elevated, create some thump. A brush hog is the same style bait from Zoom. But you put all these on that light weight, and basically you're going to go down the bank, and you're using it to cover water. You're casting, you're slow reeling with that rod tip up, and a lot of times they'll smoke it. Like the bite's going to be a big old bang, dude. They're going to put slack in your line, and you're basically looking, and you're using it for two things. One, to catch fish, obviously, but two, if you do miss a fish, what you can do is kind of creep up where you missed that fish and see if there's actually a bed there. Maybe the male swiped at your bait, and then you kind of transition into that sight fishing mode. So it allows you to cover water in between beds that you see, in between sight fishing opportunities that you have, and it just makes you more efficient in that ultra shallow water where your classic chatterbait, your traps, things along those lines just kind of lose their functionality and become more of a hassle than anything. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's something that I'm doing right now. It's super functional. You can go from casting this thing to pitching it. It's very versatile. So you basically have one rod that can do multiple different things, drag and swim, and it allows you to cover water, which is one of the most important things, because what I've found is these fish kind of bed in stretches. You'll have dead water for 100, 200, 300 yards, and then all of a sudden there'll be like 7 beds lined up on like a 20-yard stretch. And finding that juice stretch, finding that sweet spot really requires that you cover some water, you be efficient, and then when you hit it, dude, it's balloons, candles, fireworks, the whole deal, dude. It's happy birthday style. So hit that like and subscribe button for me. I hope you guys are getting out there in the spawn. I know I'm going to go smoke some, dude. But we will see you next time, talking fishing, hopefully catching some fish, and doing fishing stuff.